Sir Rick here, reminding you to tune in to our new segment called The Sledgehammer, featuring those who make a legal difference in our industry.
All right, it's Drive Safe Dave, and we're back here on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. And I have with us David Ennis, who is an advocate of, or a highway safety consultant. Is that not correct?
Correct.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. We were visiting shortly before the show about you being a former police chief at Annapolis. How long were you police chief at Annapolis?
So I spent about 19 months at the United States Naval Academy before I decided that law enforcement was just getting too much for my old body.
Wait, so how many years in law enforcement were you? Because I figured you were like, what, 38. So I just wanted to make sure you were.
So I had close to 38 between the Air Force and civilian career. I spent most of my time with the Anne Arundel County Police Department outside of Baltimore and Annapolis, where I served as their traffic commander for most of my career, and part-time I was the major crime commander, so I oversaw homicide, robbery, and all major crimes.
Let me ask you a quick question, and I know as we talk, and one of the reasons you're here is because of your wealth of knowledge in and experience in dealing with highway crashes and also collisions out there on the road. Is there really truly a more dangerous place in the United States than out there on the road?
Absolutely not. A motor vehicle crash is a violent event. For people to think otherwise and just dismiss it as the normal course of business, that's just outrageous. They're preventable. 95% of crashes are due to human behavior. So we have to do our best to operate vehicles safely so we can all operate and use our roadways safely and get to our destinations.
So, I know, and I'll tell you, or let me ask you, is one of the main reasons it's so important to you because of your firsthand knowledge and firsthand experience of arriving on these scenes as a first responder?
So yeah, the reason I got into this is my friend was killed in 1986 by an impaired driver, and the devastation I saw it caused to her husband, who I thought was one of the strongest men I'd ever seen. He broke down and was just an emotional wreck, and it devastated that family. And I said, how can I make a difference? So that's where I began my craft of traffic enforcement. And it is a craft in law enforcement, often viewed as simply parking tickets, but that's not the case.
Oh yeah, there's way more to it than that. You know, and as we talk about this and we bring it up, each of these, I mean, you have almost 45,000 people killed every year on our highways and roadways in the United States. And each of those, right, David, is a tragic story and a tragic event that devastates tens of thousands of families.
Absolutely. And we're just talking about the fatalities, right? Not the ones that the quality of life may be in a vegetated state. So that affects the quality of life for that family, the entire, what remains of that family. But traffic safety is public safety because in most areas, the leading cause of death or injury is due to motor vehicle crashes versus other violent crimes. But if you always see the TV shows, CSI Miami, but you really don't see anything about the devastation of everyday life. About 100 people are killed on our roadways daily, and that has to stop.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the Women's in Trucking conference this last week at this time, and I had the fortunate to listen to the Ms. Hutchinson, who is the director of the FMCSA, and she said they are working. Their goal is 0 fatalities, 0. No longer is it reducing. No longer is it minimizing. It's going to 0. That's their goal. And I applaud the idea that we could get to 0. You know, that we have the ability to get to 0 by making some definite changes in our society and the way we look at crashes, right?
Absolutely. You know, we're a drive-through society, if you think about it. So there's distractions in our vehicles. I mean, U.S. vehicles have cup holders in them. European vehicles do not. You have to ask yourself why.
Well, have you met a German?
Yes.
Have you met a German? They're very straight line, oh, you're driving, right? You're not there for leisure. In fact, I bet you didn't know, I lived there for a while. The Autobahn has to change directions every kilometer. It can't be straight away after a kilometer. It has to constantly do this so that the driver has to stay aware of what's going on and can't be, has to pay attention of constantly where the road's going. They do that on purpose so that the driver has to be aware of what's happening.
I was born over in Germany, over in Wiesbaden, so I've been over there. My fiance is German, so we talk about this all the time. The driving culture in Europe versus the driving culture in the United States. And it starts not only at the national level, but more importantly at the local level. Local laws can help us be safer on our roadways, but the enforcement of those and the education of the citizens to those laws.
And I'll tell you it's unfortunate that we believe that driving is a right and not a privilege. And it amazes me how many people, it's my right. Look, it's a privilege to be able to drive. The actual interstates were truly designed and made for big trucks by creation, so that for interstate commerce. I mean, they were designed and created so that we could have trade from here to there. But my main question is, how do we educate and continue to educate our drivers out there in the United States?
So it starts at the basic level with the Motor Vehicle Administration test. Do they test to a standard, or do they test to get them out on the street to operate? The trucking industry, as well as the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, they have programs out there to, let the citizens know, and more importantly, our teen drivers know that heavy trucks have blind spots, the no zone, that they can't stop quickly. The distance that the truck driver has, that 25 or 30 feet, they're following that other vehicle, is not for you to cut in there and take that spot and take the immediate exit. That's to allow the safe operation of the professional driver to operate and get that load safely to its destination, so then we, the consumer, can enjoy it.
Yeah, I think so. So here's my question that's not on our paper. As a police officer, did you ever have to recertify with your weapon at any time? Did you ever have to go more than once? The first time to go in, boom, boom, boom. Okay, you're qualified forever. You don't ever have to show up with that gun again, right? Is that how that works?
No, it's lifelong learning with that.
Why? But it's just as dangerous, right?
Correct. And I've had some candid conversations with administrators of the Motor Vehicle Administration. I worked for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, where I had 7 states that I assisted with. And we'd always talk about this. Other than going in the one time you take your test to demonstrate your proficiency, how often do you have to go back?
And do you think we're missing that as a stopgap? Do you think that would help? Do you think, I don't know that it could hurt, but do you think that it could help in the situation? And I'm not just talking about professional drivers. I'm talking about everybody out there on the road.
I believe so, yes. That there is nothing wrong with, let's say, every second renewal, you have to go and do a skills test, because there's skills that we don't use on a daily basis. Some states have gone away from parallel parking. They had a high failure rate. Yes, they had a high failure rate, so they simply got rid of that. But those are skills that, if not practiced, just like weapons, somebody, if you execute that maneuver wrong, somebody could seriously get hurt or killed.
Do you think that we as a society truly understand the gravity of the situation when it comes to crashes and roadway safety? Do you think we really get it?
No, and I've always said that motor vehicles, the 40,000 people a year that are killed, are dismissed, that they're not part of the national outcry, that 100 people a day losing their lives. You might have one crash with a commercial motor vehicle that caused, in a snowstorm, that caused a chain reaction. that might make the news. Other than that, people just say, I need to get where I'm going. Can you clear the road? They fail to understand that that's a homicide by definition, that somebody lost their life, and there has to be a proper investigation to find out what caused it so we can prevent it in the future.
And are we doing a good job at that? Seriously?
No.
Why?
And so having worked for the federal government, we give the states the money, we encourage them to spend it on certain things, but as far as accountability, there's states that have had their crash rates go up over the last 5 years and continue to receive federal funding. You have to ask yourself, if the problem is getting exponentially worse, like it did in COVID, they were saying that the severity of crashes went up, speeds increased, so there was a higher crash rate, then why do they continue to get the money?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Why would you pay for bad results? I mean, that's what you're basically. We're footing the bill on bad results, right? I mean, we're basically doing that. Let me ask you, if you had an opportunity, and you deal in a real world environment, right? You've dealt on the government level, you've dealt in the police, and you're also a part of the community and a good citizen. As you look back and you got a better, you have a broader scope of this. What are some genuine solutions that we need to really, and I don't think any one thing's going to work, but I think it could be a multitude of things, right?
Yeah, well, lately, there's police officers, there's this perception that police officers aren't out there enforcing traffic. They are, but you see, the traffic stops have gone bad because somehow people believe that they can argue the reason of the stop on the roadside. So law enforcement officers enforce laws. The judicial system interprets the laws. So if you want to argue it, argue in front of the judge. The radar gun, if it says you're doing 55 and a 45, you were speeding.
I will tell you, unfortunately, in the logistics chain and in truck driving, you're probably going to find a more professional driver and understanding that the police officer's doing their job. And I've always found that drivers understand roadside inspections, understand getting stopped, understand. I bet you they argue less than the average four-wheeler. What do you think?
I have never had a run-in as a former commercial vehicle inspector with a professional driver. The ones you usually run into are the combinations that forget that once they become 10,000 pounds or greater, that they need a medical card. And that they can't pull into the liquor store in that combination vehicle on Friday afternoon.
That's correct. Bad. Yeah, absolutely. We try to differentiate here at BCB for safety in trucking. We try to say that, drivers are professional drivers. They're Class A drivers. They got the A on the test for a reason. And everybody else got the C because at best, they're going to be average at best out there on the road, right? That's what we can expect is about average. That's what we're going to get out there on the road, not only in attitude, but in the way they operate, but just everything in a sense. Let me tell you, and let me ask you, so here we are, trucking. It is a challenge to be out there on the road with other motorists. I mean, it is definitely a genuine challenge to be a professional driver today out there on the road with other motorists.
Absolutely. They do a great job. They come in, they keep their rigs, they do their pre-trip inspection, they have professional attitudes, they get their sleep, they do everything. They use their turn signals, which drivers don't. They keep the safe distance. But in multi-lane roads, you see these cars that are so impatient that they'll change 3 or 4 lanes and then end up back in front of that truck driver that had that safe zone so he could stop quickly. That's taken away from him because the person was following their ways that said exit now, and they turned in front of the truck driver rather than looking at the signs a mile back. So, we have distracted driving. We have a lot going on in cars now. Just look around, and your drivers see it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. What is this? I got something on my piece of paper that says McDonald's French fry. What is that?
So I tell the story of of distracted driving. So you talk about the cognitive distraction, the mind, the visual distraction, the looking, and the manual distraction of moving my hands. So we're a drive-through society, right? So somebody will say, hey, pick up something for dinner. In my old life, I'd roll through McDonald's drive-through. I'd get the French fry, the bag, and I put it on the seat. You roll the windows up. And McDonald's French fries are awesome when they're hot.
Yes, they are.
You start smelling the French fries. So you're thinking to yourself, this is where that cognitive distraction comes in. You're like, maybe I can just grab one to satisfy my need. So then the visual, you look over at the bag. The manual, you grab a handful because you can't just have one. You stuff it in your mouth, you drop one, and then the cycle starts all over again. So you're visually looking for that. You're cognitively thinking, I can't leave evidence in the car to show I was snacking. But at the same time, you're manipulating your car and not driving straight and endangering all the other people on the roadway.
I mean, you brought a whole new light to me, David, because as you could probably tell, I've had my fair share of fries behind the wheel a million times and always thought I was safe.
And we all do, look at police officers, I had a computer system, I had a radio talking to me, telling me where to go. I'm trying to listen to my normal radio so I can, think of my songs and think about the good times, listen to the songs. And then you're trying to eat at the same time driving to a call. We set ourselves up for failure as far as the example for distracted driving. Law enforcement needs to do a better job. And I was one of those that said, we do need to do better.
I also added to that, and we talk about distracted driving. It comes in, technology has helped add to that distraction with phones and tablets and other means of communication that we have out there at our fingertips that we are addicted to, and looking at our phones. I mean, we are basically as a society addicted to the messages, addicted to the communication and then the chat rooms and the social media and the Netflix, and we're addicted, and it's hard to separate those in the vehicle. And it doesn't matter if you're a professional driver, a police officer, or anybody else out there on the road. It becomes a genuine challenge trying to be, I guess, self-policed, right, in that manner, right? I mean, it makes sense.
They think that just by momentarily looking over, let's say I'm doing 50 miles an hour, that's 75 feet per second. I reach over, I look at the radio, I change from one news station to the next news station. That's 1.5 seconds, maybe 2 seconds. I've gone 150 feet. What if a vehicle had stopped or a child had jumped out in front of me?
Yeah, you don't know.
Correct.
Can't, you just don't know. The other day I was driving in my car on the freeway at night, and I did just that. I looked away at the radio for just a second, just the radio. My car auto collision alert sounded. There was a car doing 25 miles an hour on the freeway.
That's unreal.
And I was coming up on it, and my vehicle warned me, and I was able to slow and move over and get around. But I was like, what are you doing? Why aren't your hazards on?
There's something going on there, be it in impaired driving, distracted driving.
Oh, on the freeway in a 75 mile an hour zone doing 25 scared me to death. Thank God I had technology to help me in that environment. Probably would have come rear-ended that car had it not been for the technology in my own personal vehicle. And I'm a pretty safe driver. Drive Safe Dave is actually a pretty safe driver most of the time. But we are infallible. That's to me, and the one question I have for you. Here we have our infallibility measured against what we should be doing. Where do the two meet, David? Where do we meet? How do we get better at what we do?
It starts with social norming, like you said. Everybody believes that driving is a right, driving is a privilege. Maybe if we suspended more driver's license for these people that have had 19 or 20 DWIs, that have been involved in fatal crash after fatal crash. But until that time, people look at it as just very dismissive. They see it as, I won't get caught. So the fear of being caught isn't really there. And law enforcement's doing the best they can. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration funds some drive sober, get pulled over campaigns, booze it or lose it, click it or ticket. But the police officers can't be everywhere, and the citizens that are driving know that.
You know, it's a shame that we as a society can't see the tragedy and the national crisis that we have with the number of people dying each year and being injured on the roadway. You know, most people don't even realize just the volume of injuries there are out there besides the fatalities. You know, the fatalities is the worst, but you and I both know if 45,000 people were killed in a city by somebody, then there would be a national outcry, but there's no outcry when it becomes one at a time or a few at a time or 100 a day. We all just take it for granted, right?
Absolutely. We dismiss it as the price of doing business so we can have our cars.
We just need to be better with the tools that we have. We need to be better stewards of society. And I think, and it's a shame that these tragedies have to happen to each of us in our lives. And unfortunately, I don't know of any